To start this episode, let's go back to 2018. Undercover agent Wolf has just arrived in West Africa, Guinea-Conakry to be exact. He swaggers across the marble floors of a luxury hotel and into their outdoor restaurant. Palm trees are casting the kind of dappled light that's synonymous with tropical getaways. But Wolf is in town for business, not pleasure. He's travelled to Conakry to meet one of the most notorious wildlife traffickers in the world, someone listed on Interpol's most wanted, on their red list, Amara Sharif.
The plan was, I arrive in the morning, I leave in the end of the day. I don't sleep in Conakry. I never slept in Conakry.
Wolf was riding solo. He had no backup team and no support from the local police. That's why the US Fish and Wildlife agents he was working for said, get in and out as quickly as possible. So one of his objectives while there was to lock in a sensitive deal with Sharif for wildlife products like ivory and rhino horn. That was in order to gather the evidence that could later be used to put Sharif in jail. Him red-handed, on recordings, running an international wildlife syndicate. So, after wanted criminal Amara Sharif finishes prayers at his mosque, he too strides across the bougie hotel lobby on his way to meet Wolf.
I didn't know that you are leaving today.
Yeah.
So to come...
What? No.
Spend overnight.
Just came to meet you. I have to go, brother.
Sharif don't like it. Guineans are known for their hospitality, inviting people into their homes and cooking local specialities. But despite Sharif's audible disappointment that Wolf is not in town for a sleepover, the pair spend just the day together. They find a secluded spot in the hotel restaurant.
We eat, we drink.
Wolf gets a coffee, Sharif a Coke. They kick back in their wicker chairs. A waitress walks over, and it's all laughter and jokes. They even giggle about corruption.
But it's good for the business. We can pray to get out of the problems.
You know, light trafficker banter. When I caught up with Wolf in person, I asked him about this meeting.
Sharif is a nice guy, joking, smiling all the time. He looks like that actor from Fast and Furious. I don't know the number of Fast and Furious.
We start scrolling through the seemingly endless IMDb pages for the Fast and Furious movies.
When they go to Dubai, what is it? 9? I think it's 9.
Until we eventually find a photo of Beninese actor Jimon Hunsu.
Yeah, he's exactly like Sharif. Just put Sharif and you'll see it's Sharif. Now, I just put here Interpol. Interpol. Now we push the most wanted.
Oh, okay. I get it.
It looks like.
Yeah. I can definitely see the resemblance. Amara Sharif has Hollywood good looks. A wide jawline, prominent cheekbones, and a salt and pepper goatee. In his Interpol headshot, he's giving a Mona Lisa smile. So anyway, Wolf and this Jimon Hunsu lookalike, Sharif, had lunch, chatted about business and life. Then they get up out of their seats and hail a taxi. Then, and this is according to Wolf's memory, they're driving along, and suddenly Sharif tells the taxi driver to hit the brakes.
And he stopped the car. I'm gonna buy something to take to your son, he told me. My son? Yes, come, let's go.
They spring out of the cab and start meandering the halls of a local shopping mall for a gift for Wolf's teen son. This might seem like a mundane moment, a spot of shopping in the midst of investigating a fugitive. But it was actually pivotal, because it's part of a master plan, and another reason Wolf had come to Conakry. See, if your trade is undercover work, there's one thing that's your most valuable currency: trust. When Wolf is talking to criminals, the idea of trust comes up all the time. You can hear it in these covert recordings.
So I have to trust you because of Abdullah, because I trust Abdullah.
I told him, trust that guy. That guy is a businessman.
I trust you because them, they failed me. Because the business is trust.
The traffickers have to trust you have the money you say you do to buy the product. They have to trust you're not going to rip them off, to trust that you're not going to be sloppy and get them in trouble. But in Wolf's case, most crucially, they have to trust you're really a genuine criminal buyer and not some mole working for the police.
I'm already used to that kind of conversations. You know, you don't trust white man, you don't trust Chinese, you don't trust this, you don't trust that.
And one way he cultivates trust is to get cozy with the traffickers and figure out their kryptonite.
It's very important. I think it's the key to find the weakness of some bad guy. Something that helps you to get close to them.
I think of it kind of like you're trying to pick a lock, probing and jangling, figuring out which pressure point will make the bolt release. And through conversations with Sharif, talking about life and his interests, Wolf began to map his weaknesses.
I saw in him that he is a family guy. So I start to push him with the family parts.
How are you?
I'm fine, how are you?
I'm okay. Family.
Not bad.
I want to bring something for your kids, but when we talked, I didn't know the age of it.
Don't worry about it.
No, I want to bring something. I'll send it for you now.
But Wolf went even further. Once, when he was with Sharif, he got his real-life son to say hi on a video call.
I say, hey, this is my friend. Say, hey, bro. Talking with my son, saying hi.
That's incredibly close, though. However risky, it was all for a purpose. It bonded them.
And he started to be more close to me on the family side.
Which is why the moment when Sharif abruptly stopped the car was so significant. It meant Wolf's manipulations were paying off. That Sharif was beginning to let go, feel close to Wolf, trust Wolf, creating a sort of emotional Velcro between them. So then, Wolf, a spy, and Amara Sharif, a wanted criminal, go souvenir shopping.
I'm searching for a t-shirt for my son saying Conakry or Guinea.
African, no, like local, really, the tour.
In these videos, you can see Wolf and Sharif at a roadside stall, sorting through layers of multicolored football shirts. Sharif looking intently for exactly the right top for Wolf's son.
He bought t-shirts and shorts of the Conakry national team.
I'm getting that for our son.
He even calls Wolf's son our son. And at times, they're arm in arm, thick as thieves, kind of literally, and also giggling like schoolgirls, less literally.
Yes, we were walking and we were chatting and hugging and with arms and like two friends. It was a very good environment between us, very good vibe between us.
This kind of blew me away. Listening back to these undercover recordings of them together, you can hear their friendship growing. It actually sounds sweet, really. Two grown men putting aside their business concerns for just a moment to pick out gifts for each other's kids. So you and Sharif, you became quite close.
Yeah, we spent 3 times together and it was very, very, very good times. We were talking on the phone all the time. Like if I don't answer him, he's pissed off that I don't answer him. Like, you know, like my girlfriend. Oh, you don't answer me. So yeah, we got that close.
What do you think of him as a person?
He's a bad guy. He pays to kill animals. Yeah, he's not a good person in the end.
Wolf had to walk this very slippery line between genuinely befriending Sharif, or at least making a convincing show of it, and keeping in mind this guy was one of the biggest wildlife criminals on the African continent. That's why he was on Interpol's red list after all, and why he had to be taken down. So, after buying a shirt for Wolf's son, Sharif drops Wolf off at the airport.
He stayed there with me until my check-in.
So much happy to meet you.
Sitting in the departures terminal, Sharif says how happy he is to have met Wolf, and how this feels like the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And then, Sharif says,
I believe we'll come up with something important in the future.
that they'll go on to do something important in the future.
It will be very important for both of us.
They would go on to do something very important, but it wasn't what Sharif had in mind. I'm Runako Celina, and from the teams at Luminary, Dream Crew, and Novel, this is The Wildlife, Episode 3, The World's Most Expensive Socks.
The first thing is build trust. And when you build trust, you do a buy.
Step 1, complete. Wolf had cultivated trust with Sharif, and to some extent, his fellow wildlife kingpins in the enterprise syndicate, Muazu Karoma and Mansour Sarur. It had been quite a slow process. There was the socializing, the jokes, taking interest in Sharif's kids, all while being a reliable businessman. Think back to the couple of years he'd spent doing small ivory and rhino horn deals. That was when he was in Kenya with his unwitting fixer, Aliyah. It was all part of creating his cover story and giving him credibility. And it showed. He paid on time, and none of those poachers were arrested.
So they all know that the white guy buys for 2 years, no problems.
Next step on the checklist was to start buying some serious product. Because undercover investigations are all about documenting criminals in the act of selling and transporting illegal items.
We need proofs that he's in the business, that he is capable of selling rhino horn. So he supplies, he transports, and he delivers. So he has his own network established.
So Wolf selected rhino horn that he'd like to buy from the Kenyan trafficker, Mansour. He'd shown him some in the back of his white Lexus SUV and photos of the others they had on offer. Wolf pointed, "I'll take that horn."
Rhino horn is very expensive. So even a smaller horn, it's always been a lot of money. So that one was 60,000.
But Wolf couldn't just spend without thinking. He was on a budget.
We always have to work with the money that the agency has to invest in that case.
You know, Fish and Wildlife doesn't have the biggest budget.
This is Wolf's handler from the agency, Sam Freiberg.
And it takes a little bit of an investment for us to put a good case together.
So I know that accounting isn't very 007, but it's important to note that Wolf was working under money constraints. If the traffickers ripped him off, took off with the cash, it was game over. $60,000 was enough to make the traffickers take him seriously. But he had to be careful. That money was coming from US government coffers, and there was only so much of it. But getting that money to the enterprise, well, it was not easy.
I used to hear that you're going to put money in their account for transaction.
Yes.
This is Wolf on the phone with Sharif, complaining that the bank won't put his wire transfer through.
Brother, the guy was there with the money. The guy went to the office with the money. And that guy, he just said, no, we're not going to do it. We cannot do it. It's too much money.
Transfers weren't working. Banks won't just let you send $60,000 with no explanation as to what the money's for. Anything that looks like money laundering or proceeds from illegal activities, banks will probably block it.
The problem is the amount. It's a big amount of money. So international transaction, it's sometimes it's a problem we have to justify. So that's why I was asking if your brother have an account in the US.
My heart is a little bit scared because I don't know you very well.
You know, the buyer is frustrated. This is growing pains for everyone in this business.
I don't know if it was an act or real annoyance, but Wolf seemed exasperated. The little money he had to spend, it seemed impossible to get it into Kroma, Sharif, or Mansour's bank accounts.
I thought that Mansour could deal with it. That's what I was thinking. But you know, it's my name and my reputation here, you know? That
This
is at
one
stake.
finished. I promise, and everything will work out easily.
Sharif tried to reassure Wolf. Don't worry, we'll iron out this money transfer problem. And to fix the issue, they came up with some almost farcical methods. That they were going to lie that they demolished a house, and Wolf would be sending money to build a new one. Another idea, they would pretend to be buying cashew nuts or gemstones, writing fake invoices. Here's Wolf with Mansour. By this point, he's completely over all these harebrained schemes.
We have to solve the money problem. We can't continue doing the things like this. It's impossible like this. It's too many confusion. It's too many risks. We cannot do this like this.
Wolf had to sort this out. Unless he could figure out how to make these payments work, he'd never be able to collect the solid evidence he was gunning for. To actually close a deal that would get these guys in legal trouble in the US. While Wolf was out there trying to figure out how to actually pay for the horns, his handler, Sam Freiberg, needed him to keep in mind another thing. He told Wolf, "There's one thing you have to do. It's absolutely critical to the case."
A key thing that we needed them to truly understand was these products were going to USA, and the money was from a USA buyer. So we needed to have that documented well to have the USA charge.
So they'd invented this buyer. A believable story because of all the stereotypes out there about the kinds of people who buy these products. It was supposed to be someone who was Chinese, living in the heart of New York City, selling wildlife products to the Southeast Asian community there, rhino horn as medicine, ivory to be carved into decorations. All this because there are precise words required for the American government to bust the enterprise. It had to be 100% clear that the criminals knew they were doing illegal business, linked to the States. In this case, the New York buyer. Without that connection, the whole operation would be useless. They couldn't be prosecuted in the US if they weren't doing business with the US.
Well, the instructions I had to say was that the buyer is an Asian person and that the buyer is located in Chinatown, Manhattan, New York.
You know the Chinese neighborhood in the New York? So the Chinese that live there, they have businesses there. They're the one buying now.
To get that specific, sometimes bad guys raise an eyebrow.
But these items, like the rhino, is going to the Chinatown neighborhood in the New York.
Why are you telling me that? And why are you asking me if I understand?
Chinese people, but they live there. They have restaurants and stores there.
Wolf mentions this a few times. And then, later on the phone with Sharif, Wolf again pulls out the magic words. Just to be perfectly clear that Sharif knows where the product is going.
It's going to Chinatown in New York.
Chinatown in New York,
Yes.
United States of America.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't get clearer than that.
Right off the bat, I know I'm shipping this to your buyer that's in New York in USA. I know that's where I'm sending it and that's who's paying me.
As I was listening to these recordings, I kept thinking, this is a masterclass in undercover work. Wolf forges friendships with the traffickers. He lines up deals. He even makes them say these critical words out loud about the US, getting Sharif to almost write his own confession. How does Wolf make such a convincing bad guy? Well, I think Wolf's origin story is worth mentioning here. Scroll back 2 decades. That's when Wolf's connection to the African continent begins. He's working in nightclubs, and he falls in love with a woman from Guinea-Bissau. Eventually, they get married, and they move to West Africa. But Wolf's wife wasn't just anybody. Wolf says that her father was, at the time, the president of Guinea-Bissau. So, through her family connections, Wolf starts working in intelligence for the army. But around the 2000s, the US's Drug Enforcement Administration had their eye on Guinea-Bissau too. That's because the country was viewed as a major waypoint for South American-produced drugs that ended up in places like Europe. So cocaine from Colombia would pass through there before arriving in, say, France. And they suspected powerful people were involved. For the DEA, someone like Wolf, an enterprising foreigner with lots of connections, was just the sort of agent they needed to track the movement of drugs through Guinea-Bissau. So Wolf was recruited as an undercover for the DEA in 2011. And Wolf then began juggling 2 jobs, his job in the military and as a spy for the US.
Guinea-Bissau was very risky. Because I was there 1.5 years working alone by myself. Because DA was not allowed to go in. I had no kind of support. If I was killed, kidnapped, during all the operation, they couldn't help me.
And things quickly escalated because Wolf was assigned to investigate one of his peers in the government, Guinea-Bissau's Navy Chief of Staff, Bubo Nachuto. American law enforcement suspected Nachuto was trying to organize cocaine to be shipped to the United States. This was his first big undercover job, and so Wolf got to work, doing what he'd go on to do again and again, starting things off by carefully forming a bond with his target.
Yeah, we get friends. I always do that.
He felt like a friend to you.
Yeah.
Wolf met Nasciuto through his bodyguard. They'd hang out at Wolf's place, eat and drink, while Wolf's young son hung around too. And to get even cozier, Wolf sent money to Nasciuto's pregnant wife in Spain, kindling trust alongside discussing the cocaine deal. All the while, Wolf is still gathering evidence against Nasciuto. Then, once the DEA had what they needed, Wolf was in charge of luring Nasciuto onto a luxury boat to be arrested, then detained in Cape Verde, and finally extradited to the US. It was the first time Wolf had ever been present at an arrest, his first taste of life as an undercover. What are you thinking in that moment?
Oh, it was weird, and scary. I never did that before.
Weird and scary, but also exciting.
It was like a James Bond movie, Like picking up bad guys, going in fast boats, traveling in luxury yacht, big operation with police waiting with automatic machine guns, everyone arrested, putting the bad guys in a private jet back to the US. Like a movie.
Masquerading as Bond is for sure an occupational perk for Wolf. It seems to me he loves being at the center of these surreal scenes. But every film eventually rolls to the credits. When it was all over, Wolf was in a hotel room, alone.
I cried in the hotel. All my nerves came down, my stress, and I had to cry. Because I never did that before.
By that, Wolf means going undercover on someone, getting close to them to gather incriminating evidence against them, and then walking them straight to their own downfall. This investigation led to Nasciuto, someone who felt Wolf was his friend, being sentenced to 4 years in prison in the US. But this is the point in Wolf's backstory where I felt like I got the biggest insight into his character. What makes him an effective undercover in the first place? The thing is, before he started working for the DEA, he was never approached by Nasciuto or anyone else to be a drug trafficker. But Wolf says if he was asked, if Nasciuto had made him an offer before the DEA did, well, he might have said yes.
Yeah, if I was working with them today, maybe I was using my abilities to make profit with the drug deals in Africa. Maybe I went to the other side and I was working with them and helping with them with the deals with the Colombians, whatever.
And perhaps this is what makes Wolf such a convincing bad guy. He very nearly was one. It was just chance that he became an undercover instead. So what character trait separates the guys who go down the bad path and the guys like you who go down this path?
You choose who you are. You want to be a bad person or you want to be a good person?
Since Nasciuto, Wolf's worked on cases around the world and become a pro. He's so extraordinarily at home cosplaying as a criminal. It's how he pulls off this pretty unbelievable job, getting people like Mwazu Karoma and Amara Sharif to trust him time after time. And then, with the ease of a conductor waving his baton, orchestrating operations leading to their imprisonment.
What I do is like mental transportation. I go to airport as myself. When I land, I'm an ivory dealer or drug dealer, and I start to act and think and react like a bad guy, Have to be like an actor in a movie.
I guess it is like being an actor, but perhaps more like doing improv. There's no script. You don't know what people will say and do at any given moment. And if things escalate, you just have to roll with the punches. Only in Wolf's case, he's always cast as the villain, and there's someone in the wings pointing a gun at him. Which brings us to Wolf's next scene, in his infiltration of the Enterprise syndicate. So, in May of 2018, Wolf was in the middle of organizing a rhino horn deal with the Enterprise. But money transfers were a nightmare. So, they were going to meet, face to face, in Uganda. That way, Wolf could simply hand over a wad of cash for the horn to Mansour and Chroma. Sharif wouldn't be there because, well, international travel becomes a bit tricky if you're one of Interpol's most wanted. Before he went out into the field, Wolf's handler at the Fish and Wildlife Service, Sam Freiberg, sat him down in a hotel room.
So he meets us. We kind of give him a briefing before the meeting, the agents do, and say, all right, this is what we're looking for.
Sam says to Wolf, in this meeting, we need to see Cromer and Mansour accepting money, payment for their illegal products. And it needs to be carefully documented as part of our case. So Wolf fires up his spy gadgets.
1, 2, 3 test.
Then Sam hands Wolf a duffel bag filled with cash. Good luck. I imagine Wolf's brain sort of fractures at this point. One side is thinking, this is the evidence I need to have clearly on tape. But on the flip side, full method acting, thinking, I'm a bad dude about to get down to some bad business. Wolf met Mansour first. They walk along quietly, perhaps a little nervously, to a supermarket car park. There, they hop in the back of Cromer's four-wheel drive to hitch a ride to the location where the money exchange was going to go down, over lunch.
We knew that it was going to be in a Chinese restaurant there in Kampala.
Cromer came to pick us up in his car and he directly took us to that restaurant.
The four men slide out of the car and strut into this huge building. A bright yellow sign saying Hotel and Restaurant hangs above the complex. Wolf is flanked by Mansour and Cromer, who's dressed in his typical Loki style, wearing a red flannel button-up. Then, a waiter guides them to a walled-off salmon-pink room.
Chinese restaurant. Okay, we eat snake today.
I never put my back to the door. I never sit with my back to the door.
Cromer actually must have known the owner of this Chinese restaurant, and he requested a private room.
And inside was a round table in each room.
Wolf was flying blind here. Firstly, he's not got a big backup team. And he's meeting in person with major criminals. Undercovers, of course, are extremely vulnerable to being attacked, kidnapped, killed even. Especially if they get caught with recording equipment. Secondly, Wolf usually likes to choose the location. That way he can make sure that it's not too noisy or also not too dark. All the better to record you undercover. But in this instance, you didn't choose the place, right?
I didn't choose the place. I just decided that he has to be on my right side so I can record.
It was super important that Cromer and Mansour are audible and visible during the meeting. So Wolf positioned himself with Cromer on his right side, the same side where his covert recording gear would be, tilted at an angle so it picked up Cromer's every word.
He was the one ordering the food. I didn't choose nothing.
What is the voice? What is the name of it? Chicken.
And that's it. And we directly to the conversation. Talking about the rhino horn we're going to buy, an amount of weight.
Wolf puts down his menu and starts talking about the thing that's brought them together. Those pesky money transfers.
We had a problem with the money. Mohammed said, the guy from there. Oh, it's okay, you can bring the money. So he made the paper with the lawyer, like we are buying house. So the guy went there with the money and the guy said, I can do this, it's too much money.
Mansour and Cromer are nodding along, commiserating about their money laundering failures. Then, Wolf assures them that he's thought of another option for getting them the payment. He says, I've had cash delivered, by hand, through my drug smuggling network.
So, what I did was, I called my Colombian people who do make cocaine business with me. They got the money, and they brought the money here to me.
This is a lie, of course, just like Wolf's entire cocaine smuggling cover story. In reality, it was the US Fish and Wildlife agents who handed the cash to him earlier that day. And here, this kind of remarkable thing happens.
In the video, they're all sitting around the table, and it's time for payment. Well, We see Wolf reach down and starts pulling money out of his socks.
When Wolf bent over and pulled up his trousers, Cromer could see that Wolf's socks were bulging with cash.
60,000, it was, a big volume to even carry in the bag or in the pockets, so I decided to put in the socks. 30.
This seems like an insane idea. Imagine waddling along with that much money in your socks. But Wolf knew exactly what he was doing. So Wolf's there, dishing out cash from his socks like they're cotton lycra ATM machines.
Money's here, don't worry. And I'm here with the money.
So I started giving to Mansour 10,000.
Count if it's there, 10,000. We count one by one.
Then Cromer turns to Wolf, equal parts impressed and astounded. He's grinning and raising his eyebrows.
He looks at me and says, I never saw someone like you.
It's a moment where Cromer finally seems to loosen up. He throws one of his arms over the back of his chair.
I think it was the first time I saw him smile.
Expensive socks, huh? 30,000 each one.
I thought it was a great idea. We all got a chuckle out of it. He's street smart, and then he's thinking this might convince Chroma a little bit more that I'm real, pulling that much money out of your pant legs and not just in a bag.
This one move cemented Wolf as the real deal, a kind of maverick criminal who knows the best places to discreetly stash large sums of money. And it earned him more trust brownie points. Or so he thought. Because then, suddenly, something shifted in Chroma.
So he counts the money, says okay, and he leaves with the money.
Just like that, an unassuming man in a white dress shirt comes and collects Chroma and the money, and Chroma leaves without so much as a goodbye. Mansour and Wolf are like, cool, well, Chroma's going to drop off the cash with his driver, then come back. Right? Right?
He didn't say nothing, just pick up the money and go. I don't understand why he left. He could eat, and then he go.
Mansour and Wolf were sitting there, over a plate of uneaten chicken and mushroom stew, dumbfounded. Chroma just up and left with the 60K. But what was clear, from the minute they arrived, despite the moment of levity over the socks, Chroma was completely paranoid.
Wolf pointed out to us that when they were walking into that meeting, he saw Chroma hand 2 or 3 phones to his driver. His driver walked away and went somewhere on the street with Chroma's phones.
Think back to when Chroma was first arrested in 2017, in the raid organised by Vincent Opiene in Uganda. The police seized his phones, and from them gleaned a lot of evidence to use against him. At the time, Chroma had been cocky, telling Vincent he was sure he'd be released, and released quickly at that. But after that arrest, Chroma was more careful. Maybe he wasn't completely convinced Wolf was who he said he was.
Chroma arrived at that meeting without his phones because he was worried that it could be a setup. We know by that type of behavior, he's a little bit nervous still. He thought he was going to get arrested again.
The clock was ticking, and ticking. Maybe Chroma would reappear. Either way, Wolf and Mansour were determined not to waste the food.
I'm not gonna eat this. This is chicken? Are you sure? Maybe it's duck? Yeah, it should be chicken, I think.
And then we waited like 30 minutes. And then only the driver came back.
Still no answers. Finally, Mansour and Wolf put their napkins on the table, pull out their chairs, and get up to leave too.
Yeah, let's say they go to check, ask for the money, for the bill.
So Chroma just left.
Left with the money.
What did you think when he left?
Well, we were all expecting that he will rip us off, just pick up the money and leave. It's always a possibility, It's always there.
After years of trying to close in on Chroma, had Wolf just made a $60,000 error?
We were a little nervous. That's a lot of money. You're sitting on pins and needles. Is the product going to come? Are these guys scam artists or what are they? And so we were asking Sharif what's going on.
Wolf eventually makes his way to his hotel to make some calls about what went down.
Hello, brother.
I have talked to him.
Yep.
I spoke to my living God. The guy was so much fearful on that side. That's
Why?
what he told me. He was so much scared.
Brother, they asked me to bring the money. That's what I did.
This is what I told him. Because me, I know you guys there. When you say something black, it's black. When you say white, it's white. When
Exactly. What I did was an emergency movement that I had to pay people and ask favors to bring the money here.
At this point, they just had to wait. Wolf could play the role of the bad guy, getting pissed off about delays, but there wasn't a whole lot they could do to stop Cromer from taking off with the cash. But the longer things went on, the more Sam worried about the security of the operation, that people would find out about the case.
Keeping it secret so Wolf is safe.
They had to keep the fact that the case was happening completely confidential. But even with this discretion, how safe was Wolf? Was Cromer actually dangerous? Wolf never got much insight into Cromer, beyond him being a serious and paranoid guy. And watching these undercover videos, I also felt like Cromer was hard to read. Sharif loves to chat, and Mansour does small talk from time to time too. But Cromer seems to be detached, awkward even. At the meeting at the restaurant, he avoids eye contact at times, and when he left, he just got up, leaving a plate of hot food. So, what kind of a person was Cromer? Well, there was one way I could find out. It turns out that Vincent Opiene's team of Ugandan investigators had an insider, a paid informant. Cromer is originally Liberian, and this mole was part of his West African community. So I asked Vincent, according to this guy, what was the personality, the reputation of this apparent crime boss?
So kind-hearted, he would help his community members from different countries.
One man even said,
When his mother was sick and dying, he provided medical fees and he managed to save the life of the mother.
The thing is, Cromer had a big second-hand clothing business. So perhaps to the general public, he was just a rich, successful, and charitable entrepreneur. I mean, locals told us he even built a public mosque. Despite being hard to read and guarded, Wolf wasn't intimidated by Cromer, or even Sharif. But Mansour, the Kenyan middleman, he gave him the creeps.
He always was watching videos of them, sharing videos of people cutting arms of each other and bombs and this and that and killing with AK-47. So his videos, even he sent to me, like shooting people. That's why I think he's a really aggressive man.
It's not a safe job they're doing. It's not at all. Some folks might say, well, they're getting money for that information, but it's not a lot of money. There are huge risks, there's no doubt.
Danger. You know, this is something I started thinking about a lot as I was getting sucked further into the Cromer case. Because at the same time, I was also getting sucked into the wider, murky and violent world of the illegal wildlife trade. And I realized Wolf's not the only one on the front lines.
A vehicle stopped in front of Anton's house. 2 men stepped out. These men approached him and without warning drew their weapons and shot him dead in front of his wife and 7 children.
Wolf wasn't the only one facing mortal danger. And in fact, there isn't just one type of front line.
His wife screamed and they shot her in the stomach before fleeing in their vehicle. These men are still on the run.
That's on the next episode.
You go to report such intimidations, the next thing you're dead.
Of the wildlife.
It felt like it was not true, and it felt like it was a dream.
It makes me so fucking angry.
The Wildlife is a Luminary original in partnership with Dream Crew, produced by Novel. It's written and hosted by me, Runako Celina. The series is reported, written, and produced by Saskia Collette, with additional production by Julian Manigera-Patton and Jake Otajevich. The executive producers are Maithili Rao and Max O'Brien for Novel, Coral Lee for Luminary, Drake, Adele, Future, Noor, Peter Nelson and Maggie Gilbride for Dream Crew, and Mauricio Gris and Alex Farquharson for Thread Studios. Research by Madeline Parr. Sound design, mixing, and scoring by David Smith. And original music composed by Jake Long. Music supervision by Nicholas Alexander. Production management by Cherie Houston and Charlotte Wolfe. Fact-checking by Dania Suleiman. Jamie Lyons is head of creator and content operations for Luminary. The voice of Wolf is Ivan Ivashkin.